Hello, everyone. I just remembered that it's been a while since I've made a big video compilation. I start working on it, and then an unexpected helper shows up. Do you have helpers like this, cat? You've been asking for it, and here it is, the ultimate mega compilation. We've dug through the archives to bring you over 100 cases of humans losing the battle against common sense. That's 2 solid hours of what were they thinking? Now, a quick heads up, the videos you're about to see are from back in August. This was the early era of the channel. The style is a bit different, the jokes might be a little raw, and the editing has that classic throwback vibe. We were still figuring out the best way to document human stupidity, but the stories? Oh, the stories are just as gold as they've ever been. From guys trying to outsmart gravity to those who thought electricity was just a suggestion, this is a marathon of Darwin Award winners that will make you feel like a literal genius. But before we dive into this 2 hour madness, I have a question for you. As you watch this, you'll notice how our style has evolved. Some of you have been here since day one, and some just joined the family. Which style do you actually prefer? Do you like the classic, fast-paced August vibes? Or do you dig the newer, more sarcastic and detailed breakdown style we've been doing lately? Let me know in the comments while you're watching. All right, enough talking, let's get to it. 100 people, 2 hours, and 0 survival instincts. Let the marathon begin. Number 1. Falling in love. Young love. Passionate, wild, full of adventure. And apparently, 0 spatial awareness. A 21-year-old couple decided to take their relationship to new heights. Literally. Instead of a bed, they opted for a pyramid-shaped roof because nothing says romance like sharp angles and a guaranteed trip to the ER. Witnesses say they were found completely naked on the ground below, which tells us 2 things. They were feeling the mood. They forgot that gravity doesn't care about romance. Authorities pieced the scene together like some kind of tragic, adult-rated Lego set. It seems their balancing act failed mid-session, and they plummeted to their deaths. I guess you could say they really fell in love. Unfortunately, Darwin himself would have given them a slow clap for demonstrating why rooftops are not a substitute for a mattress. Number 2. Backseat drivers. Next stop, a steamy SUV in Russia. A 22-year-old woman and her partner decided the back seat of a parked car was the ideal location for their private party. Sure, it was parked, but apparently the transmission was left in neutral, which, as we all know, is basically an invitation for gravity to throw a tantrum. As they were otherwise occupied, the SUV rolled straight into a lake. They probably thought the car was just rocking from passion, but nope, it was on a one-way trip to Atlantis. The pair drowned before help could arrive. Lesson of the day: cars are not bedrooms. Parking brakes exist for a reason, and waterbeds should never involve an actual body of water. Darwin Award Committee? Approved. Number 3. Faulty aim, fatal. Our third contestant thought he was starring in an action movie. Picture this. Police are chasing him, gun in hand, running like a scene straight out of a low-budget thriller. He decides to fire over his shoulder without looking, because apparently aiming is optional when you're living your bad guy main character fantasy. Only one tiny problem. Instead of hitting the cops, he managed to shoot himself in the head. Yes, you heard that right. He eliminated the competition. And by competition, I mean himself. Some say guns don't kill people. People kill people. But in this case, this guy skipped the middleman. Darwin takes another bow as common sense packs its bags and leaves the room forever. Number 4. Killed by his own booby trap. Meet a retired engineer who apparently had a grudge against his own family, or at least enjoyed turning his home into a real-life Home Alone set. He rigged up a series of booby traps for reasons only he understood. Probably some combination of paranoia, boredom, and too many spy movies. The problem? He wasn't Kevin McAllister. One day he walked straight into his own trap and killed himself. Yes, this guy was outsmarted by his own invention. It's like designing a mousetrap, then testing it with your own finger. And losing. The kicker? These traps were supposedly for unwanted relatives. I think it's safe to say he succeeded in keeping them away forever. Because who's visiting a house where the homeowner can't even survive his own defense system? Number 5. Bottom of the barrel. And now, let's roll back a century to meet Charles Stevens, an English daredevil with a dream and a total disregard for physics. He wanted to make history by going over Niagara Falls in a barrel. Other people had done it and survived, so why not him? Well, Charles decided to add a twist. He strapped an anvil to his feet for stability. You know, because nothing says safe trip like a 200-pound weight pulling you straight to the bottom of the river. The barrel shattered on impact, leaving only the anvil in Charles's arm, still strapped inside, as evidence of his genius plan. Congratulations, Charles! Not only did you fail the stunt, you also invented the world's most useless anchor. Number 6. Barrel of methanol magic. Washington State, 2010. Some people go to the park with a sled. Others, they see a 55-gallon barrel of methanol and think, this will make a fantastic ride. Spoiler alert, it did not. Our star of the day sat on this highly flammable, unstable barrel, expecting it to glide down a hill like some kind of budget bobsled. But instead of providing thrilling speed, the barrel exploded, turning this stunt into an impromptu fireworks show with only one participant and 0 happy endings. Folks, if your sled of choice doubles as hazardous material, you're not doing extreme sports. You're doing extreme stupidity. Somewhere, a physics teacher sighed, shook their head, and added this one to their Why I Drink list. Number 7. The drive-thru disaster. Picture this. A woman pulls up to a kiosk in her car, probably to grab something small. But instead of putting the car fully in park, she leaves her foot on the brake. She then leans out the window to pick up a card she dropped. Gravity, always the opportunist, takes over as her foot slips. The car rolls forward, and her head gets trapped between the car and the kiosk. It's the kind of mistake that makes you wish life had a rewind button, or at least a big neon sign that says, put the car in park before doing yoga outside the window. Sadly, this mishap went from minor inconvenience to full-blown tragedy in seconds. It was supposed to be an ordinary errand, but poor judgment and bad timing combined for a very Darwinian ending. Number 8. Bulldozer protest. There are safer ways to make a political statement. Holding a sign, chanting, even wearing a chicken suit if you're feeling theatrical. But this particular woman decided those were too boring. Her brilliant idea: climb onto the shovel of a moving armored bulldozer. Apparently, the plan was to make the machine stop by sheer presence alone. Unfortunately, bulldozers aren't known for their delicate maneuvering, and they're even less known for stopping instantly when someone decides to treat their shovel like a moving lounge chair. She fell under the tracks, and the protest ended in tragedy. Moral of the story: heavy machinery is not a stage for performance art. If your protest plan relies on a driver with perfect reflexes and a shovel doubling as a seat, maybe it's time to rethink the strategy. Number 9, the pond pipe genius. Our next contestant proves that age doesn't always bring wisdom. This 61-year-old man noticed debris clogging a pond pipe on his property. Instead of, say, waiting for daylight, grabbing proper tools, or even wearing a life jacket, he decided to tackle the job at night, alone, like a budget version of an action hero. He went in head first, literally, to try and clear the pipe. The water flow was stronger than expected, and without flotation or backup, he drowned. Here's the rule of thumb, folks. When you're working near water that can suck you in, a life jacket isn't optional fashion. It's a survival plan. Darwin doesn't hand out awards for bravery, only for impressively poor decision-making. Number 10, the moped versus Flash. Flood, we have a man on a moped who thought he could outrun both the police and a flash flood. Picture this cinematic chase. Sirens blaring, rain pouring, and our hero zooming off on a scooter that probably tops out at 30 miles per hour downhill with a tailwind. The floodwaters, unsurprisingly, didn't care about his escape attempt. He misjudged a swollen creek, drove straight into it, and the current swept him away. Here's a quick public service announcement. If you're trying to flee, maybe don't choose a moped during a flood. Water is undefeated, and mopeds aren't exactly amphibious vehicles. Darwin likely gave this one a special mention for combining two bad ideas: running from the cops and challenging a natural disaster into one unforgettable exit. Number 11, the DIY balloon flight. If you've ever watched a weather balloon floating in the sky and thought, I want to do that, stop right there. Because one man decided to tie thousands of balloons to a garden chair in an attempt to live out his homemade hot air balloon fantasy. At first, the plan worked. He started rising into the air, likely grinning from ear to ear, thinking he was pioneering a new form of travel. But here's the thing about gravity. It's not a suggestion. Somewhere along the ascent, he slid off the chair. Without a parachute, that romantic airborne adventure ended the only way it could, tragically. Folks, flight is a science. Garden furniture and party balloons are not aircraft materials. Even the Wright brothers are looking down at this and saying, we risked our lives for this? Number 12, chimney sweeping. Here we have a man with a clogged chimney and the kind of imagination that should have been illegal. Instead of calling a professional or even using, say, a broom, he decided to solve the problem with a hand grenade. Yes, you read that right. A live explosive. The plan? Toss it up the chimney to blast away the blockage. The reality? The grenade didn't quite make it out. Instead, it turned his house into a very short-lived fireworks display, taking him with it. If there were a Hall of Fame for questionable home improvement projects, this would be the main exhibit. Darwin DIY. When tools aren't enough, use military ordnance. Truly a shining example of how problem-solving can go horribly, hilariously wrong. Number 13, the Segway saga. You'd think that the inventor of the Segway would know its limits better than anyone else. But apparently, curiosity got the better of him. One day, he decided to test just how rugged his personal transport device really was. He rode it off-road near a cliff and went one step too far, literally. The Segway rolled over the edge, and both rider and invention met a tragic end at the bottom. It's the ultimate irony, creating a product designed to safely transport people only to have it be the vehicle of your own demise. Even Darwin himself probably paused on this one, muttering, that's not evolution, that's just bad luck and worse navigation. Number 14, shotgun stunt. Some couples play board games, others watch movies. This couple invented a game that nobody in their right mind would ever try. The fun activity involved placing the barrel of an unloaded shotgun against a particularly sensitive area of the husband's anatomy, let's call it the do not disturb zone, and pulling the trigger. Apparently, they had done this before without issue. But on this fateful day, someone forgot to check if the shotgun was actually unloaded. The inevitable happened, and the man's name was instantly added to the Darwin Awards Hall of Fame. Morale of the story: firearms are not toys, especially not for bizarre party tricks. There's a reason Russian Roulette for Beginners isn't a best selling book, and this case explains why. Number 15. The Sewage Surprise. Thievery is already not the brightest idea, but this thief managed to make it a whole lot worse. He tried to siphon gas from a parked motorhome, probably hoping for a quick and easy score. But instead of hitting the gas tank, he plugged his siphon hose into the sewage tank. By the time authorities found him, he had fled the scene in a state of utter disgust, having taken a mouthful of something that definitely wasn't fuel. Though not fatal, this fiasco still earned him a Special Mention Darwin Award for proving that crime doesn't pay, and sometimes it leaves a really bad taste in your mouth. Literally. Somewhere, every honest mechanic in the world read this story and said, "Good, serves you right." Number 16. DIY bungee jumping. You know what makes bungee jumping thrilling yet safe? Professional equipment and people who understand physics. Unfortunately, this next daredevil skipped both. He tied several bungee cords together, thinking he could replicate the real thing from a bridge. The issue? He forgot one crucial detail. Bungee cords stretch. A lot. So when he jumped, expecting a nice, controlled rebound, he instead learned that his cord was too long. The result was a full-speed dive straight into the ground. This one could almost be a math problem in a high school textbook. If your bungee cord stretches X feet and the bridge is Y feet high, how long do you live? The answer is not long enough to get a refund on your homemade safety gear. Number 17. Avalanche Encore. Our next star was a snowmobiler who loved the thrill of high marking, which basically means driving up steep, snowy slopes to see how high you can go. The problem? Avalanche warnings were in effect. He triggered one avalanche, barely survived, and instead of saying, "Maybe I should stop," he went back for round 2. This time, the mountain had had enough. A second avalanche swept down, and this time, he didn't make it out. Nature is patient, but it's not forgiving when you keep poking it with a snowmobile. As they say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice. Well, that's how you get your name on a Darwin Awards list. Number 18. Paragliding canal dive. And now we have a paragliding enthusiast who learned that not every landing is a smooth one. He came down in a canal, which might have been survivable, except for one thing. His parachute filled with water and dragged him under. Despite his attempts to free himself, the heavy, waterlogged chute acted like an anchor. Rescue teams couldn't get to him in time, and what should have been an adventurous flight turned into a tragic reminder that water plus tangled equipment is a deadly mix. Public service announcement: if your hobby involves strings, cords, or fabric sales, have a plan for what happens if you land somewhere wet. Evolution doesn't hand out do-overs when bad luck meets bad planning. Number 19. Dumpster diving disaster. Dumpster diving can sometimes be an odd but harmless hobby, or just the result of a bad night out. But for one unfortunate soul, a drunken decision to climb into a dumpster turned into a one-way ticket to the Darwin Awards. He likely thought he was safe, curled up among cardboard boxes, and last night's pizza crusts. But fate had other plans. A garbage truck rolled up early in the morning, tipped the entire contents into its compactor, including him. And well, let's just say the truck won. Lesson learned? Sleeping in dumpsters is not only unpleasant, it's literally life-threatening. Natural selection doesn't have a snooze button, folks. Number 20. Manhole mayhem, chemistry class gone wrong. Next up is a story straight out of a cautionary tale for every science teacher. A biology teacher, of all people, decided to dispose of some chemicals by pouring them down a manhole. Apparently, nobody warned her that mixing unknown chemicals with sewer gases is like playing Russian roulette with a chemistry set. The result? A massive explosion launched the heavy manhole cover into the air like a missile, and it came down with deadly precision, striking her fatally. This is one of those moments where even the most laid-back safety inspector would throw down their clipboard and say, "You're teaching science, and you thought this was a good idea?" Darwin sighed. Nature shook its head, and another unfortunate name was added to the list. Number 21. Runway. Roulette. Our next contestant thought an airport runway would make a nice shortcut for a bike ride. Maybe they figured it was just a long, flat road with no traffic lights. Unfortunately, he forgot that runways have traffic of a much scarier kind, airplanes with rapidly spinning propellers. As a plane was landing, the cyclist somehow managed to collide directly with one of those propellers. The outcome was tragically predictable. This one feels like it should have been obvious. Roads are for bicycles. Runways are for planes. Mixing the two is a little like trying to share a swimming pool with a shark. You're not the main character in that story. You're the snack. Number 22. The freezer robbery. This next Darwin Award proves that being a bad guy doesn't mean you're smart about it. A would-be restaurant robber broke in expecting easy money. But the staff weren't having it. They overpowered him, tied him up with duct tape, and locked him inside a walk-in freezer. You'd think someone would have called the cops right away, but apparently, either panic or poor timing left the guy stuck there far too long. By the time authorities opened the freezer, it was too late. Hypothermia had beaten justice to the punch. Darwin Award judges likely gave this one a cold case trophy. If you're going to break the law, at least make sure you don't end up outsmarted by duct tape and a giant fridge. Number 23. Mugger versus tigers. And now we have a mugger who made a series of very bad decisions. First, he picked a zookeeper as his target. Second, when trying to escape, he climbed into a tiger enclosure. Now, if you've ever seen a tiger, you know they don't take kindly to unexpected guests. The big cats treated him not as a criminal intruder, but as a moving chew toy. Zoo staff eventually managed to intervene, but not before nature had already made its point loud and clear. It's one of those rare Darwin moments where poetic justice meets natural selection. If you're going to commit a crime, maybe don't do it next to large predators with claws and teeth designed for dismembering dinner. The tigers didn't call the police. They didn't have to. Number 24. The plunger and washing machine catapult. Every household has a plunger and a washing machine. Most of us keep them separate because, well, one handles laundry and the other handles plumbing disasters. But according to this long-standing Darwin Awards tale, someone decided to combine them for what might have been the weirdest DIY stunt ever attempted. Details are fuzzy, but here's the gist. The individual reportedly used a plunger as part of some catapult stunt involving a washing machine. The plan was apparently to hop off the washer mid-cycle or during some bizarre balancing act, landing safely while showing off this Brilliant homemade trick. Unfortunately, gravity, sharp angles, and one poorly positioned plunger had other plans. The unlucky stunt performer allegedly landed on the plunger in a way that nature clearly did not intend, resulting in instant fatality. Whether every detail is true or not, the story has been circulating long enough to earn a spot in Darwin lore. It's the kind of tale that makes you sit back and think, somewhere, someone actually thought this was a good idea. It's tragic, absurd, and a reminder that washing machines are for clothes, plungers are for toilets, and combining them should never involve full body acrobatics. Number 25, the icy river prank. Now to a confirmed type of fatal mistake that has sadly happened multiple times in real life. Pushing someone into an icy river as a joke, then jumping in yourself. Even though you can't swim, the Darwin Award recipient in question thought it would be hilarious to shove his girlfriend into freezing water. She surfaced quickly, angry but fine, because unlike him, she knew how to swim. Not satisfied with his first act of poor judgment, he leapt in after her, perhaps to keep the joke going or prove a point. One glaring issue, he couldn't swim and the water was near freezing. This is where nature stops laughing. Cold water shock is brutal. It steals your breath, locks up your muscles, and drags you under before you realize what's happening. While his girlfriend managed to fight the current and reach safety, he sank beneath the icy surface and never came back up alive. There's no humor in the outcome, only grim irony. It's the classic Darwin Award formula. Take reckless behavior, mix it with zero preparation, and let natural selection write the ending. It's tragic, it's unnecessary, and it's one of those moments where even the river seemed to say, "You brought this on yourself, buddy." Number 1. First up, we had a farmer, bless his cotton socks, who apparently decided that modern pest control was just too darn complicated. He had a beehive problem, a buzzing, stinging nuisance that needed to go. Now, most of us might call an exterminator, or at least invest in a proper bee suit. You know, the kind with like actual air holes. But not our man. No, he decided his genius plan involved fire, because nothing says get out of my barn to a colony of angry insects like a good old blaze. And to protect himself from the agitated aerial assault team, a plastic bag, specifically a plastic bag pulled over his head like some kind of impromptu, low-budget DIY bee helmet. I can practically hear the internal monologue. Bees can't sting me if they can't see me. Or perhaps, this plastic is clear so I can see them, but they can't see me. The logic, as you can probably surmise, was about as watertight as a sieve in a rainstorm. He set his fire, stirred up the hive, and then, in his brilliant plastic bag cocoon of self-preservation, proceeded to suffocate. Turns out, plastic bags, while excellent for holding groceries or protecting your dry cleaning, are shockingly inefficient at filtering oxygen. It's almost as if the primary function of lungs isn't to be encased in non-porous polymer. You really have to admire the unwavering commitment to a truly terrible idea. He certainly achieved his goal of becoming a permanent fixture of the natural landscape, albeit a carbonized one, while the bees, presumably, moved on to pester someone with a slightly stronger grasp of basic biology. Number 2. Then there's the universal saga of the vending machine. Oh, the humanity. We've all been there. Staring forlornly at that elusive soda or bag of chips, stuck just out of reach, a cruel culinary mirage. Most of us might sigh, maybe give it a gentle nudge, or, if we're feeling particularly daring, try another dollar. But our next contender for the Darwinian Hall of Fame decided diplomacy was for chumps. This gentleman, clearly a man of action, opted for the assert dominance approach. He apparently shook, tilted, or otherwise physically accosted a soda dispenser, demanding it relinquish its sugary bounty. Now, these aren't exactly lightweight appliances, are they? They're often bolted down, or at the very least, weighted like a small car. But when you're in the grip of snack related fury, physics apparently becomes a mere suggestion. Our hero put his back into it, maybe envisioned himself as a modern day Samson wrestling a monolithic snack guardian. And in a poetic twist of ironic justice, the vending machine fought back. Or rather, gravity did its thing. It toppled, and being a large, heavy, unyielding metal box filled with cans of soda, it landed squarely on top of him, crushing him to death. The soda, one can only assume, remained stubbornly stuck. It's a poignant reminder that while impatience might cost you a few dollars at the checkout, it can occasionally cost you everything when you go head to head with industrial grade beverage distribution systems. One has to wonder if, in his final moments, he still harbored a desperate craving for that frosty can of root beer. Probably not. Number 3. From the mundane frustrations of snack machines, we venture into the wildly exotic with Buonrung Buachan, the so-called Thai Snake Man. Now, the very title should be a red flag, right? Snake Man. It just sounds like a job description that ends in tragic headlines. Bonrung's particular brand of genius involved a glass box, a handful of highly venomous cobras, and an audience. His shtick? To essentially live in the box with these slithering death noodles, proving something. Bravery, foolhardiness, a profound misunderstanding of reptile psychology. The answer, as it turns out, was all of the above, culminating in the latter. For days, he'd apparently coexisted with these creatures, probably making small talk or discussing the existential dread of being a human-sized snack in a glass enclosure. But cobras, bless their hearts, are not known for their boundless patience or their unwavering respect for performance art. They're primarily known for their ability to inject lethal neurotoxins. So, inevitably, one of his scaly roommates decided enough was enough. A bite. And just like that, the Thai Snake Man became a permanent exhibit, though not in the way he intended. It's a tale as old as time. Play with fire, get burned. Play with venomous snakes, get bitten. It's almost as if some things are inherently dangerous and should probably be admired from a very, very safe distance. Perhaps he was trying to prove that humans could transcend their mammalian fear of fangs, but all he really proved was that cobras are still really, really good at being cobras. Number 4. Speaking of proving things, let's talk about Gary Hoy. Gary was a lawyer in Toronto, a man who, you would think, understood the finer points of liability, risk assessment, and basic structural integrity. He was apparently very proud of the strength of the windows in the high-rise building where his law firm was located. So proud, in fact, that he decided to demonstrate this strength by running full tilt into them. Now you might think, well, the glass must have been incredibly strong, right? And you'd be correct. The glass itself didn't shatter. Oh no, that would be too simple, too straightforward for a Darwin Award. What Gary, in his infinite wisdom, failed to account for was the frame holding that supposedly impenetrable glass. He reportedly crashed into it once, bouncing off to the amusement of his colleagues. See, he probably gloated, strong as heck! But like a true enthusiast, he needed to double down. So he tried again. And this time, instead of the glass breaking, the entire window pane, frame and all, popped out of its housing. And Gary, still propelled by the momentum of his ill-conceived demonstration, sailed right through the newly created opening, plummeting to his death. He proved, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the glass was indeed robust. He just neglected to confirm that the window was attached to the building in a similarly robust fashion. It's a truly exquisite example of tunnel vision, where the focus on one component entirely overshadowed the integrity of the whole system. A lawyer, no less, failing to read the fine print of gravity. Number 5. And now, for a touch of classic American ingenuity, or lack thereof, we present the DIY pickup truck bungee jump. Now, bungee jumping is already an activity that requires a certain leap of faith, usually into the hands of professionals who use purpose-built, highly elastic cords and safety harnesses. But our next subject clearly thought, why pay for fancy specialized equipment when I've got a perfectly good set of tie-down cords for my pickup truck? Yes, those cords you use to secure a stack of plywood or a grill in the bed of your F-150. Clearly, the same elasticity and load-bearing capacity, right? He found himself a bridge, attached his repurposed truck cords, and took the plunge. Now, anyone who's ever stretched one of those cords knows they have a limited, very abrupt amount of give before they just stop. They're designed to be taut, not bouncy. Our man, however, apparently neglected this crucial detail. He didn't so much bungee jump as he did bungee fall. The cord snapped taut almost immediately, delivering a bone-jarring, neck-snapping jolt that was less exhilarating rebound and more sudden stop at terminal velocity. The result, predictably, was fatal. It's a stark reminder that while the American spirit of improvisation is commendable, there are certain areas, like plummeting hundreds of feet towards the earth, where cutting corners with garage door springs or repurposed automotive accessories is probably not the wisest financial or life-saving decision. Sometimes it really is worth paying for the proper tools for the job, especially when the job involves defying gravity. Number 6. Next, imagine this. The year is 2005. Hurricane Wilma, a tempestuous lass, is throwing a full-blown tantrum over Florida. Forecasters are practically screaming, "Stay inside, people!" This ain't no gentle breeze for drying your laundry. We're talking gale force winds, storm surges, the whole 9 yards of meteorological mayhem. Most sensible folks are boarding up windows, stocking canned goods, maybe even nervously hugging their significant others. But not our man. Oh no, our man, a true connoisseur of extreme sports and apparently extreme obliviousness, sees not a Category 3 hurricane, but a prime opportunity. He looks out at the churning, frothing Atlantic, the trees bending like humble servants before a monarch, and thinks, you know what this needs? A kite surfer. Yes, a kite surfer. With the kind of unwavering optimism usually reserved for lottery ticket buyers, he straps himself into his gear, ignoring every single blaring warning, every panicked news report, every instinct that screams, don't. He believed, with the earnest conviction of a motivational speaker, that he could conquer Mother Nature herself, with nothing but a glorified bedsheet and a board. Now, I'm not sure what kind of physics textbook he was reading, but I'm pretty sure it didn't cover the immense, unstoppable force of a hurricane. He launched himself into the maelstrom, probably hoping for some epic, slow-motion, Instagram-worthy wipeout that would make him a legend. And a legend he became, all right? A cautionary tale legend. He was last seen, seen. After that, the ocean decided it needed his kite surfing equipment more than he did. And he was, shall we say, rapidly uninstalled from the gene pool. It turns out even the most extreme sport has its limits. And those limits are generally defined by not going out in a freaking hurricane. Who knew? Number 7. Next, let's journey over to the Philippines, to an industrial plant where the daily grind was, shall we say, taken a little too literally. We're talking about a large industrial meat grinder, not your kitchen countertop model that churns out dinner for two. We're talking about a beast designed to process literal tons of animal matter. It had a safety grate, as these machines usually do, because, it's generally considered bad form to let human beings become part of the processed product. Now, our unfortunate participant was a worker on the factory floor. The machine, as machines sometimes do, got a bit jammed up. Perhaps a stubborn bone, a tough sinew, something just wasn't sliding through. The correct procedure, of course, would be to hit the emergency stop button, wait for the machine to completely power down, and then clear the jam with appropriate tools. But our man, in a moment of what can only be described as profound impatience, mixed with a dash of I know better, decided that waiting was for suckers. He figured he could just reach into the active, whirring maw of the industrial grinder and give it a little nudge with his bare hands while it was still running. You can almost hear the cartoon whump sound effect as he leaned in, probably thinking he'd just give it a quick poke. The grinder, however, had other ideas. It wasn't about to let a mere human hand interfere with its destiny of turning everything into a fine, uniform paste. In a horrifying, swift motion, it grabbed hold. And an industrial meat grinder, let me tell you, does not let go. Not for polite requests, not for screams, and certainly not for the sudden, desperate realization that maybe, just maybe, safety protocols exist for a reason. His torso was pulled in, making him the most unfortunate and, ironically, final ingredient of the day. A truly efficient, albeit grisly, way to thin out the workforce. Number 8. Now, hop on a plane with me all the way to the rugged, beautiful, and sometimes surprisingly deadly Australian outback. Not the desert part, mind you, but a property in Victoria, where a gentleman had decided to keep a pet deer. Or, more accurately, a pet stag. And not just any stag, but a sizable one, complete with a rack of antlers that could double as a medieval weapon. Now, while Bambi might be cute and cuddly on screen, real deer, especially stags, are not. They are wild animals, driven by instinct, hormones, and an innate desire to occasionally gore things. Especially during mating season, when they get particularly territorial and aggressive. Our Australian friend, however, seemed to have confused his pet stag with a particularly large antlered golden retriever. He treated it like a docile companion, probably scratched it behind the ears, maybe even tried to teach it to fetch. One day he was out on his property just minding his business when, for reasons known only to the stag and perhaps the deep, primal instincts of wild animals, the pet decided it had had enough of domestication. Or maybe it was just having a bad antler day. Whatever the reason, the stag charged. And it wasn't playing. It used those magnificent, bony protrusions on its head for their intended purpose. Impalement. The man, caught off guard by the sudden and entirely predictable savagery of a wild animal, didn't stand a chance. He was gored repeatedly, succumbing to his injuries right there on his own land. It's a stark reminder that some pets come with very sharp, pointy, and deadly accessories. Sometimes the wild things just want to stay wild, and attempting to impose domesticity can come with a very steep final price. Number 9. And now, let's take a grim safari to Zimbabwe, where a man with a rather ambitious and frankly boneheaded plan decided to tackle the elephant poaching problem with a unique, self-defeating strategy. You see, elephants are majestic creatures, but their ivory is unfortunately highly coveted on the black market. Our protagonist, a poacher himself, wanted to make it easier to get his hands on that ivory. His brilliant scheme? To plant anti-personnel landmines in areas where elephants roamed, ensuring a quick and explosive end to the magnificent beasts. Now, acquiring landmines isn't exactly like picking up groceries. These are dangerous, military grade explosives designed to maim and kill. But he got his hands on them, and then came the truly genius part of his plan. He decided to transport these highly unstable, pressure activated devices not in a secure container or a specialized vehicle, but by carrying them himself, like a picnic basket full of doom. He was literally walking around with multiple landmines, probably dreaming of all the ivory he'd soon be collecting. As you might have guessed, or perhaps more accurately predicted with absolute certainty, things didn't go according to his meticulous, yet deeply flawed blueprint. One of the landmines perhaps jostled a little too much, or perhaps just eager to fulfill its explosive destiny, decided it was time to detonate. Right there and then, while he was carrying it. The resulting explosion, as you can imagine, was quite thorough. It didn't just take care of him, it scattered pieces of his grand, ill-conceived poaching scheme across the landscape. The elephants, meanwhile, continued their peaceful grazing, blissfully unaware that a human had just self-selected himself out of existence in an effort to blow them up. Sometimes, the universe just has a hilarious way of ensuring karmic justice, even if it's delivered with a bang. Number 10. You know, in this age of instant gratification and social media supremacy, everyone wants that perfect shot. That one picture that screams, "Look at me, I'm living life on the edge." Well, our next contestant, a gentleman with a keen eye for dramatic backdrops, certainly found an edge. Literally. He was hiking, probably in some beautifully scenic, vertigo inducing locale, when he spotted it. A tree branch jutting out precariously, hundreds of feet above a canyon. The perfect spot for an epic selfie, he thought. The kind that would make all his followers gasp with admiration. He climbed out onto the branch, probably striking his most daring pose, maybe even flashing a peace sign or a thumbs up. He probably envisioned the likes flooding in, the comments raving about his adventurous spirit. What he likely didn't envision was the branch, a mere piece of timber, having the audacity to decide it had had enough of supporting human aspirations. With a groan that probably echoed through the canyon, the branch gave way. 100 feet down, not exactly the likes he was looking for, unless you count the grim, silent acknowledgement of gravity. It seems some photos are truly to die for, just not in the way he'd hoped. A stark reminder that sometimes the best view is from solid ground. Number 11. Now, this next one is so uniquely American, it practically deserves its own bald eagle screech in a fireworks display. We're in Kansas, the land of waving wheat and, well, apparently very ambitious dogs. Picture this, a gentleman out and about with his trusty canine companion in the back of his pickup truck. And in that same pickup truck, completely unsecured and very much loaded, was his rifle. Because, you never know when a rogue squirrel might challenge you to a duel. His dog, a creature of boundless energy and perhaps a touch of clumsiness, was doing what dogs do, enthusiastically exploring its surroundings. It was probably sniffing around, maybe trying to catch a stray sunbeam, or perhaps just having an existential moment about the meaning of fetch. In the course of its canine adventures, it stepped on the rifle. And because the rifle was loaded, and because the safety was, shall we say, optimistically disengaged, the gun fired. The shot hit its owner. Fatally? Yes, you heard that right. A dog unintentionally, tragically shot its owner. It's a tale that sounds like it was cooked up in a darkly comedic improv show, but alas, it's a testament to the unforeseen consequences of leaving powerful tools unsecured. It seems even man's best friend can be a little too good at playing fetch when the fetch involves a bullet. A bizarre, unfortunate, and entirely preventable incident that reminds us to always secure our tools, especially the ones that go bang. Number 12. We all strive for peak physical performance, don't we? Our next recipient certainly did. He was driving, probably on his way to or from the gym, fueled by ambition and the promise of sculpted abs. In his hand, he had a container of protein powder. And because he was clearly a multitasker of the highest order, he decided to mix it right there and then. But not with a shaker bottle. Oh no. That would be too conventional. He chose a knife, a sharp, pointy knife, to stir his protein powder while driving. Because nothing says gym bro like a DIY culinary experience in a moving vehicle. Now, as fate, or perhaps just Newton's laws, would have it, something happened. Maybe he hit a pothole. Maybe he swerved. Whatever the trigger, the car's airbag, sensing an imminent collision and doing its job, deployed. And when that airbag exploded out of the dashboard, it didn't just cushion his impact, it also quite efficiently impaled him with the very knife he was using to mix his protein powder. Right in the neck. It's a tragic confluence of bad decisions. Mixing a sharp object with a vehicle, ignoring basic driving safety, and assuming that an airbag would somehow know not to turn your culinary tool into a deadly projectile. One moment, he's envisioning gains. The next, he's part of a very unfortunate, very permanent lesson in vehicular thermodynamics and the dangers of distracted driving with impromptu cutlery. Number 1. Lawn care, the great suburban sport. There's something about fresh cut grass that makes you feel accomplished. But our first contender decided to take yard maintenance to a new and dangerous level. Faced with a steep incline that most of us would avoid, he fired up his riding lawnmower because apparently nothing says safety like a 500-pound machine on a slope that could double as a ski jump. Instead of, say, using a weed trimmer or leaving it as nature's landscaping, he rode the mower straight into Darwin history. Halfway through the descent, the mower decided gravity was the better landscaper and flipped, sending both man and machine tumbling into a ravine. The mower didn't survive either, but it did get the last laugh. Moral? If the terrain looks like a black diamond ski run, maybe don't drive heavy machinery on it. Number 2. Our next contestant thought he had cracked the code for quick cash. Blow up an ATM and collect the money. Simple plan, right? Except, when you're working with explosives, there's a very small window between success and headlines. He carefully placed the charges, probably imagining himself in a Hollywood heist movie. Unfortunately, instead of a slow-motion escape, his plan went off instantly, literally. The blast destroyed the ATM, the cash, and the thief, all in one spectacularly bad moment. Experts say timing is everything. In this case, it was also the last thing. So while the bank remained intact, our would-be robber made a permanent withdrawal from the gene pool. Number 3. Next up, the tale of a man who was offered the easiest safety option in the world, a sober friend willing to drive him home. But no, he had a motorized scooter and liquid courage, and what could possibly go wrong with that combination? Sadly, physics had other plans. At some point, balance became optional, and he toppled off, hitting his head on the pavement. No helmet, no reflexes, and no second chances. It's one thing to make a poor decision. It's another to reject the better alternative right in front of you. His friend probably drove home safely that night. He did not. Number 4. If you've ever been at a hotel with a pool, you've seen that one person who decides normal pool entry is too boring. Our next nominee was that person spotting the pool from a balcony and thinking, I can make that jump. Now, making such a leap is already risky, but there was a tiny detail he missed. The pool had been drained for maintenance. No water, no splash, just concrete. In the seconds it took to leap, the plan shifted from epic stunt to gravity speedrun. Always check your landing zone, folks. Water is forgiving, tile and concrete are not. It's number 5. And now we have the home mechanic who wanted to save a few bucks on car repairs. Nothing wrong with fixing your own vehicle if you have the right tools. Sadly, this story is what happens when you don't. Instead of using proper jack stands or a lift, he improvised with whatever he had lying around. And as anyone who's worked on cars knows, improvisation plus 2 tons of metal is a risky formula. The car slipped, the supports failed, and the full weight came down on him. Mechanics have a saying, always respect the lift. Sadly, in this case, the lift didn't return the favor. Number 6. Some folks believe that when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. This man believed that when life gives you a clogged toilet, you make a pipe bomb. Yes, you read that right. Apparently, instead of grabbing a plunger like every other functioning human being, he decided to channel his inner mythbusters. Without the science, without the safety measures, and without the common sense. The plan was simple. Pack some explosives into the porcelain throne to blast the clog away. Because sure, plumbing problems should be handled with the same force used to sink enemy ships in World War II. The result? Well, the toilet didn't just unclog, it detonated like a mini Hiroshima, sending ceramic shrapnel everywhere. The poor guy was found with injuries so severe that even the coroner probably said, "What in the name of Home Depot happened here?" Lesson learned. Just because something is stuck doesn't mean you need a blast radius to fix it. Number 7. We all know someone who thinks they're the funniest person in the room. Usually, they're not. This guy wanted to prank his friends by grabbing a live electrical wire and pretending to get shocked. Small problem. Wires don't care if you're pretending. They shock you whether you're serious or not. The moment his hand touched that wire, he went from, "Ha ha, I'm so hilarious," to, "Oh, I appear to be smoking," in about 0.3 seconds. His friends, thinking it was part of the act, didn't even rush to help at first. By the time they realized he wasn't acting, it was too late. Darwin Award secured. Moral of the story, electricity is not a prop, and your last joke should not require a fire extinguisher. Number 8. Meet the herpetologist who thought he was immune to the venom of one of the most dangerous snakes on the planet. Why? Science? Ego? A death wish? Your guess is as good as mine. This man literally let the snake bite him to prove a theory. Unfortunately, the theory was apparently, "I wonder what it's like to die in excruciating pain." Spoiler, the theory checked out. He spent the next few hours swelling, convulsing, and realizing that Mother Nature doesn't negotiate with overconfidence. People asked him before the experiment if he was sure about this. He replied something like, "I've studied snakes my whole life. Yes, and yet here we are." Turns out years of research don't give you anti-venom superpowers. They just make your obituary a little more ironic. Number 9. Some people just have to get the perfect Instagram shot. You've seen them hanging off cliffs, standing on the edge of rooftops, laying down in the middle of highways. This person took it to the next level by posing in a train tunnel for a dramatic photo. They probably imagined the finished picture looking like an action movie poster. What they got instead was a very literal final cut. Despite the existence of things called schedules and common sense, they didn't account for the fact that trains still use tunnels. The photographer yelled for them to move, The person froze, probably thinking, I can make it. A thought proven wrong in the loudest, heaviest way possible. The only drama captured that day was the one the coroner had to write down in the report. Number 10. Nothing says summer like a backyard BBQ, unless your version of flavor involves blasting yourself into orbit. This man was cooking on a grill that was dying down, so he grabbed a can of lighter fluid and went to town. Now, every single grill safety guide ever written says never add lighter fluid to hot coals. Why? Because it turns the grill into a medieval cannon. He poured, the fumes ignited instantly, and boom, he was on the receiving end of a fireball. The neighbors said it looked like a Michael Bay explosion scene, only with more screaming and less CGI. The burgers were incinerated, the man was tragically done for. And the lighter fluid bottle? Perfectly fine. The takeaway: a good BBQ should make your mouth water, not your eyebrows disappear. Number 11. Some people believe rules are meant to be broken. Others believe seatbelts are optional if you're just going up for a quick look. This guy, he believed both, and gravity was happy to prove him wrong. Our airborne adventurer was floating peacefully in a hot air balloon, enjoying the scenery, when he decided his seatbelt was cramping his style. He unbuckled it to get a better view. Yes, because when you're dangling hundreds of feet in the air in a wicker basket, mobility is priority number one. Predictably, one gust of wind later, he discovered that humans, unlike birds, are terrible at flying. If nothing else, he probably got the best view possible on the way down. That's what we call a first-class ticket, straight to the Darwin Awards Hall of Fame. Number 12. Fishing can be relaxing, meditative, and peaceful, unless your bait of choice is military-grade explosives. This man, tired of waiting for fish to bite, decided to speed things up with a hand grenade. Because nothing says fresh catch like shrapnel in the scales. His genius plan? Toss the grenade in, watch the fish float up, and scoop them out. His oversight? Physics. Specifically, the part where the grenade exploded a little too close to his small wooden boat. Witnesses say the blast was like something out of a movie. If the movie was directed by someone who thought Jaws needed more pyrotechnics and fewer survivors. On the plus side, the fish got their revenge. The downside, they didn't even have to lift a fin. Number 13. Some people play with puppets. Others play with snakes. Very few combine the two. But our contestant here decided the world needed a one-man performance of The Muppet Show, starring a live rattlesnake as Mr. Hissy. He thought it would be funny to put his hand inside the snake's open mouth and wiggle it around like a sock puppet. The snake thought otherwise. Let's be honest, snakes aren't known for their comedic timing, but their reflexes? Those are top tier. One lightning fast bite later, our aspiring puppeteer was on the express lane to the afterlife. You know what they say? It's all fun and games until your puppet is venomous and hates improv. Number 14. We've all seen those backyard redneck engineering videos. Someone straps a lawn chair to a bungee cord, the neighbors gather around, and suddenly you've got yourself a YouTube moment. Well, this crew decided to take it up a notch by building a giant slingshot big enough to launch a human. Because why waste time with science fairs when you can recreate medieval siege weaponry in your backyard? They strapped in their volunteer, read guy who lost the coin toss, pulled the contraption back, and let her rip. Unfortunately, their math skills were about as solid as a marshmallow wall. Instead of sailing majestically into a pile of mattresses, our human cannonball went straight into a solid wall. The only thing launched further than him was common sense, and it never came back. Number 15. Tree houses are childhood dreams brought to life. Little hideouts where you can plot pirate adventures, eat candy, and pretend you're in your own private world. But here's a tip. If you're building one as an adult, maybe invest in something more stable than a couple of old pallets and blind optimism. This guy decided to construct his masterpiece high in the branches of a very tired-looking tree. Problem 1, his carpentry skills were non-existent. Problem 2, the tree was barely holding itself up. Problem 3, he climbed inside to test it before actually securing anything. Gravity once again took over, and the whole thing came down faster than a toddler's Jenga tower. The moral of the story: if your treehouse plan starts with, "It'll probably hold," it won't. Number 16. Some people juggle balls. Some juggle flaming torches. And then there was this guy who looked at a set of running chainsaws and thought, you know what this needs? A little flair. Whether this was for a backyard bet, a TikTok stunt, or simply because his brain cells had gone on strike, we'll never know. The performance started well enough. 3 roaring blades spinning in the air. But juggling requires coordination, and coordination is hard when each mistake is a trip to the ER. Except he skipped the ER and went straight to the pearly gates. Moral of the story: chainsaws are for cutting wood, not for auditioning for the Darwin Awards live show. Number 17. Most homeowners clean their gutters with a ladder and a little elbow grease. But this man, he decided to take innovation to a level OSHA would strongly disapprove of. His plan: stand on the roof, fire up a leaf blower, and let the gust blast all the debris out in seconds. Only problem? He set the blower to turbo hurricane mode. The blast of air didn't just send leaves flying, it sent him flying. In one moment, he was king of the rooftop. In the next, he was auditioning for the role of ragdoll in freefall. Gravity, as always, did not negotiate. Number 18. Now, I get it. Hot tubs are relaxing. They're also, believe it or not the best place to do electrical work. This man apparently didn't get that memo. Sitting in bubbling water, he noticed the wiring for the lights was faulty. Instead of, I don't know, turning off the power and getting out, he thought he could fix it right there, mid-soak. Imagine reaching into a nest of live wires while sitting in a giant cup of water. The result? Let's just say his spa day became a Sparks day, and his final moments looked like something out of a low-budget superhero origin story, minus the survival part. Number 19. Here's a tip. If you're ever stuck in a small boat without a motor, there are better solutions than this. One man decided he could turn his fire extinguisher into a propulsion system. After all, it sprays fast. Why not aim it backward and let it push you forward? The idea might have had some merit if the extinguisher hadn't spun the boat like a possessed carnival ride. The high-pressure blast sent him into a dizzying spin, capsizing the vessel in seconds. Not only did he fail to reach shore, he got an unplanned swimming lesson and tragically never surfaced again. On the bright side, the boat was very fire safe. Number 20. We've all heard of people doing dumb things on a dare, but this guy decided to go for the aquatic gold medal. Whether he dropped his phone in the tank or just wanted to show off, he leapt into a pool full of piranhas. Nature documentaries make these creatures seem like slow-moving little fishies, until you toss in something meaty, like, say, a full-grown human. Witnesses say he made it about halfway across before the feeding frenzy began. It was quick, chaotic, and horrifying, which is exactly how piranhas like it. The real tragedy? The fish probably spent the rest of the day with a smug look, thinking, best lunch ever. Number 21. There's a special kind of person who looks at a thunderstorm and thinks, you know what would make this more exciting? Climbing the tallest piece of metal in the area. This unnamed genius spotted a lightning rod on a tall building and decided it was the perfect stage for whatever stunt he thought he was doing. Perhaps he wanted an epic selfie. Perhaps he wanted to feel the power of nature. Or maybe he was auditioning for the role of human conductor. Midway up, the sky was putting on quite the light show. Nature's way of warning him, this is a bad idea. But he pushed on, gripping that metal rod like it was the last ladder rung to glory. Then, as if the universe had been waiting for the cue, boom! A blinding flash. In one glorious moment, our hero discovered the speed at which electricity travels. Spoiler, faster than regret. The end result? Physics 1, human 0. And somewhere Benjamin Franklin shook his head. Number 22. The car wash, a place for cleaning vehicles, not auditioning for a Wet and Wild Darwin Award. But one man apparently missed that memo. For reasons best left to psychologists, he decided to run through an automatic car wash completely naked. Maybe it was a dare. Maybe it was performance art. Or maybe he thought, if it works for cars, it'll work for me. He slipped inside during the wash cycle, grinning like a man about to prove his point. The brushes started spinning, the sprayers hissed, and for a brief moment it looked like he might pull it off. But automatic car washes aren't built for delicate human anatomy. One rotating brush snagged him, yanking him into the machinery. A tangle of hoses, spinning arms, and bad decisions later, it was over. On the plus side, he left this world squeaky clean. Number 23. Some people spend years training to handle explosives. Others watch one YouTube video and think they're an expert. Enter our amateur bomb technician who found an old, rusted explosive and thought, how hard can this be? Spoiler, very hard. Ignoring every sane option, like calling professionals, he set up shop in his garage, tools laid out like he was about to change a tire. He prodded, poked, and probably muttered something like, it's probably not even live anymore. The bomb, however, disagreed. One tiny mistake was all it took. In an instant, his garage, his career as a part-time demolition hobbyist, and his future were gone. The only good news? The neighbors don't have to hear him rev his lawnmower anymore. Number 24. You know how some people insist on showing how safe a product is? This man took that concept and sprinted right past common sense. Holding a stun gun, he announced to friends, see? It's harmless. And for maximum dramatic effect, placed the device inside his mouth. Perhaps he expected a little spark, a funny tingle, maybe applause. Instead, he got a jolt strong enough to scramble his heart like Sunday breakfast. He dropped instantly, leaving everyone in the room wondering if they just witnessed the worst magic trick in history. Lesson learned. Your mouth is for food, drinks, and bad karaoke, not conducting electricity. Number 25. Finally, we have the reptile enthusiast who thought crocodiles were just scaly stage partners. In front of an audience, he crouched beside a massive croc, pried its jaws open, and slid his head inside like he was auditioning for America's Got Death Wishes. For a moment, the crowd gasped at his bravery. Then the crocodile remembered it was a crocodile. The jaws slammed shut with enough force to crush bone like a soda can. The audience's gasp turned into horrified silence, and the show was over permanently. Nature has many ways of humbling humans, but this one comes with teeth. Number 1. Take, for instance, the legend of the washing machine dare. This wasn't some kiddie pool frolic. We're talking about an industrial grade behemoth, the kind that eats laundry by the ton and probably has its own zip code. Our protagonist, let's call him Spin Cycle Steve, decided that what this magnificent piece of machinery truly needed was a human being performing an impromptu high-speed tumble dry. For laughs, apparently. The kind of laughs that dissipate quicker than a free donut at a police station, because nobody was chuckling when Steve emerged. Or, rather, when what remained of Steve needed to be extracted. It seems a 200-pound man doesn't fare well when subjected to the same centrifugal forces designed for thousands of wet towels. The punchline, if you could call it that, was that the machine still needed a good cleaning afterward. Some stains you just can't get out. Number 2. Then there's the modern-day epic of the jet engine selfie. In an era where every moment is a potential viral video, it was perhaps inevitable that someone would push the boundaries of common sense into the stratosphere. An airport worker, clearly a connoisseur of extreme photography, decided that the ultimate profile pic involved posing in front of a running jet engine. Because why not? It's loud, it's powerful, it probably gives off a nice windblown effect. What he seemingly forgot, or perhaps never quite grasped, was that a jet engine is designed to suck in massive amounts of air, and apparently anything else unfortunate enough to be in its path, at terrifying speeds and then blasted out the other end. Physics, as a general rule, tends to be rather unyielding. And common sense, well, it appeared to have taken an early flight out of the terminal. The selfie, tragically, was never uploaded. Neither was the worker, for that matter, at least not in any recognizable form. His last thought might have been, I hope this gets a lot of likes, which, ironically, it did posthumously in the form of millions of "Are you serious?" reactions. Number 3. And who could forget the tale of Rocket Man, or as he's known in the annals of poor judgment, the rocket chair disaster. This particular visionary believed that the key to unlocking the true potential of his trusty lawn chair lay not in comfy cushions or ergonomic design, but in a liberal application of high-powered fireworks. To see how fast it could go, he declared, presumably to an audience of either incredulous onlookers or highly amused squirrels. Now, for those of us who weren't blessed with an advanced degree in rocket propulsion from the University of Common Sense, the answer to how fast could it go is almost universally fast enough to become a significant safety hazard. In this case, it was fast enough to achieve terminal velocity and a very abrupt, non-aerodynamic landing. The chair, surprisingly, survived in relatively good shape. The man, less so. He wanted to reach for the stars. He merely reached the nearest tree. Permanently. Number 4. Next on our tour of human ingenuity gone spectacularly wrong, we have the individual who reinvented the drying process with the microwave experiment. Tired of waiting for the traditional clothes dryer, or perhaps just a pioneer in appliance misuse, this person decided their socks could use a quick zap in the microwave. Because naturally, a device designed to rapidly heat food by bombarding it with electromagnetic radiation is also the perfect solution for damp fabric. What could possibly go wrong? Only everything, apparently. The socks, it turns out, contain just enough moisture and perhaps a hidden metallic thread or two to turn the microwave into a short-circuiting, spark-generating, house-igniting inferno. The house burned down. The socks were undoubtedly crispy. And the person who initiated this brilliant stroke of domestic innovation, they didn't make it out. It's a stark reminder that some shortcuts are just a detour to disaster. Number 5. And now we arrive at the classic Arizona tale, the cactus punch. A tourist, fueled by what one can only assume was a potent cocktail of bravado and poor decision-making, decided that a saguaro cactus, a majestic desert sentinel standing upwards of 50 feet tall and weighing several tons, looked like an excellent sparring partner. For fun, mind you. He wound up, threw a mighty fist, and made contact. Now, anyone who's ever had a run-in with a cactus knows that they are not exactly cuddly. They are, in fact, armed to the teeth with thousands of incredibly sharp, barbed spines. But our hero wasn't deterred by mere biology. He hit it. And to everyone's astonishment, especially his own, the mighty saguaro, perhaps weakened by age or just insulted by the audacity, actually fell. What followed was a swift, immutable lesson in physics and gravity. The cactus fell, and so did he. Underneath it. Turns out being flattened by a giant, spiky desert plant isn't quite the viral moment he'd envisioned. His fun was rather short-lived, and his medical bills, had he survived, would have been, shall we say, extensive. Number 6. Next up, we have the captivating saga of the elevator shaft peak. Picture this. A man, a perfectly ordinary day, perhaps fumbling with his phone or a handful of loose change, and plink, something tumbles down the abyss of an elevator shaft. Now, for most of us, this would elicit a sigh, maybe a call to maintenance, or perhaps a resigned shrug as we consider the item gone forever. But not for our hero. Oh no, he possessed a unique blend of optimism and a profound misunderstanding of how elevators operate. He decided that the optimal strategy for retrieving his lost treasure, or perhaps just getting a better look at where it went, was to lean right into that dark, cavernous opening. You know, to really get a good vantage point. What he failed to factor in was the rather crucial detail that elevators are, by their very design, meant to travel up and down those shafts. And so, precisely at the moment his curiosity peaked, so did the elevator, making a grand, rather forceful entrance. The look he got was indeed better, arguably the last, and certainly the most impactful. It turns out an express ride from the basement to the roof is not nearly as scenic when you're caught between floors. Number 7. Then there's the cautionary tale of the propeller swim. The setting, a serene lake, a boat, and a boater who'd clearly had a few too many spirit lifters. In a moment of liquid courage-fueled inspiration, he declared his intention to touch the moving propeller. Because naturally, the apex of a good time is engaging in a tactile exploration of rapidly spinning, razor-sharp metal blades designed to propel tons of boat through water. His friends, presumably sober enough to grasp the inherent idiocy, likely offered a range of "don't do it" to "you're an idiot." He, however, was undeterred. He dove in, and credit where credit is due, he succeeded. He did touch the moving propeller. Briefly. Very, very briefly. The sound, one imagines, was less a splash and more a thwack splatter. The outcome was a stark reminder that while alcohol can make you feel invincible, physics remains stubbornly immune to your altered perception. The lake, it said, gained a peculiar reddish tint that afternoon. Number 8. Our seasonal entry into the Hall of Shame comes courtesy of the snowblower check. It's the middle of a blizzard. Snow is piling up faster than excuses from a politician, and the trusty snowblower, that mechanical champion of winter, suddenly clogs. A common problem easily solved by turning the machine off, waiting for all moving parts to stop, and then carefully clearing the obstruction with a stick or a specialized tool. But patience, much like common sense, is often the first casualty in a crisis. Our impatient protagonist decided the most efficient method was to simply reach his bare hand into the whirring, churning maw of the running machine. To clear the clog, you understand. Let's just say the snowblower cleared more than the clog that day. Not all of him came back. In fact, a significant and rather important part did not. It was a clear demonstration that a snowblower doesn't differentiate between a compacted block of snow and, say, a metacarpal. Both, apparently, are equally grist for its mill. Number 9. For those who believe crime doesn't pay, may I present the grim lesson of the air conditioner drop. The scene: a high-rise apartment building, a hot summer day, and a determined individual attempting to pilfer a window air conditioning unit. From a considerable height, mind you. This wasn't a ground floor smash and grab. This was an ambitious, multi-story extraction operation. Our thief, evidently a keen observer of property, but less so of the fundamental forces of the universe, managed to dislodge the unit. At which point, gravity, that tireless and impartial arbiter of all things falling, took over. The AC unit, being rather heavy, plummeted. And tragically for the thief, he was still rather attached to it. Or perhaps more accurately, in its immediate trajectory. It was a self-correcting problem, really. He tried to steal property, and in return, gravity handled the sentencing with swift and absolute finality. The unit, the ground, and the thief all experienced a rather intimate, high-impact reunion. Number 10. And now, for the truly baffling, we have the story of the homemade guillotine. Yes, you read that correctly. Someone, somewhere, decided that a medieval execution device would make an excellent conversation piece for their home. Forget tasteful art or a quirky antique. Nothing says, "Welcome, make yourself comfortable," like a towering wooden structure designed to decapitate. The sheer morbid curiosity behind this is staggering enough. But then came the next logical step, at least in the mind of its creator. I've built it, but does it work? And so, with a perhaps misplaced sense of scientific inquiry, or just a truly astonishing lack of self-preservation, they decided to test it on themselves. The blade, as it turns out, was quite effective. The conversation, however, ended rather abruptly. In fact, it ceased entirely. It's a stark, brutal reminder that some experiments are best left to theoretical physics, and some conversation pieces are simply not worth talking about. Ever again. Number 11. Consider the perplexing case of the lawnmower lift. We're talking about a farmer, a man presumably familiar with sharp implements and powerful machinery. His lawnmower, that trusty steed of suburbia and agriculture, apparently developed a minor issue on its underside. Now, for the vast majority of sentient beings, the logical first step would be to, turn the darn thing off, disengage the blades, maybe even unplug it if it's electric. But no, our agrarian innovator decided that such precautions were for the faint of heart, or perhaps those without an urgent need to admire spinning blades up close. He attempted to fix the underside of a running lawnmower. One can only imagine the reasoning. It'll be quicker this way. Or, I can totally just reach under there for a sec. Natural selection, however, is not known for its patience or its appreciation for shortcuts. It was remarkably quick that day. The farmer learned rather emphatically that a lawnmower's primary function is to cut things, and that includes anything that comes into contact with its rapidly rotating blades. His impromptu mechanical inspection proved to be less of a repair and more of a permanent recalibration of his overall physical integrity. Number 12. Then there's the truly ambitious, if utterly ill-conceived, project of the submarine in a pool. An amateur inventor, brimming with the kind of confidence that only comes from binge watching too many documentary specials about deep sea exploration, decided his backyard pool was ripe for nautical innovation. His vessel of choice? A personal submarine, cobbled together from a collection of oil drums. Yes, the kind that once held motor oil or some other equally non buoyant liquid. The design was likely a triumph of hope over hydrodynamics. He launched it into his suburban oasis, presumably with visions of becoming the Jacques Cousteau of his cul-de-sac. The problem, as it quickly became apparent, was that while it certainly submerged, it forgot a rather crucial part of the submarine equation: the marine bit that allows one to resurface. Oil drums, it turns out, are excellent for holding liquids, but less so for resisting crushing water pressure or for containing sufficient oxygen for an extended period. He didn't resurface. The pool, meanwhile, likely became the most intriguing, albeit tragic, water feature in the neighborhood. One can almost hear the neighbors whispering, "Remember old Dave? Always said he was going to make a splash." Number 13. Moving from the depths to the chilling surface, we encounter the chilling tale of the chainsaw ice sculpture. This masterpiece of poor judgment features a man, undoubtedly lubricated by several adult beverages, armed with a chainsaw, and standing on a frozen lake. His artistic vision? To carve ice. With a chainsaw, while standing directly on the medium he was attempting to sculpt. The average person might realize that a heavy man, swinging a vibrating gas-powered cutting tool on a sheet of ice already prone to cracking, might be inviting disaster. But our man was on a mission for frosty artistry. He started cutting. The ice, true to its brittle nature, broke. He didn't swim. It's a stark reminder that some artistic pursuits are best left to those with a clearer head and a solid understanding of structural integrity and hypothermia. His sculpture, sadly, remained unfinished, a testament to a fleeting moment of drunken ambition. Number 14. And for those who seek to profit from dangerous shortcuts, we have the illuminating, if deadly, story of the power line grab. A thief, lured by the promise of copper wire's resale value, decided to engage in some impromptu electrical engineering. His target? A live power line. Not a dead one. Not one that had been de-energized. A live one. The kind that carries enough voltage to power a small town, or, as it turns out, to instantly incinerate a human being. His thought process, one presumes, involved a profound underestimation of electricity's destructive power, perhaps believing it was merely a tingle or a shock, rather than an instantaneous, superheated final curtain. He reached for the wire, and he got fried before he could cash in. The brief, spectacular flash that followed was, in essence, the universe sending a very clear, very high-voltage message. Some things are not worth stealing. His last moments were likely spent in a state of sudden, intense regret, punctuated by a rather impressive light show. Number 15. And now we arrive at the airborne culinary catastrophe known as the hot air balloon BBQ. Two men, seemingly believing that the sky was the limit for their gastronomic ambitions, decided that the perfect setting for a barbecue was while floating hundreds of feet in a hot air balloon. Forget the inherent danger of open flames in a confined space filled with highly flammable hot air. They brought a grill and a propane tank. Because nothing says leisurely afternoon like the constant threat of explosive decompression and a fiery plummet. The propane tank, it seems, held a rather strong dissenting opinion about this particular dining experience. Perhaps it felt underappreciated, or maybe it just had a fundamental disagreement with being introduced to an open flame in such a volatile environment. Whatever its reasoning, it disagreed with a rather dramatic, highly exothermic protest. The resulting fiery spectacle was less a pleasant cookout and more an unscheduled, rapid descent, illuminated by an impromptu fireball. They wanted to elevate their barbecue game. They merely achieved an unscheduled, very hot, and very final descent back to Earth. Number 16. Our expedition into the extraordinary depths of human foolishness continues, proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that for every complex problem, there's a simple, often fatal, solution that someone, somewhere, will inevitably attempt. It's a testament to a certain kind of misplaced confidence, one that seems to whisper, "What's the worst that could happen?" just before things go spectacularly, tragically wrong. Take, for example, the man who decided to tackle the stubbornness of a stuck beer keg valve with the finesse of a demolition expert. This wasn't a job for a wrench or even a good, solid tap. No, our thirsty hero reached for a blowtorch. The logic, one presumes, was that a little heat would loosen things right up, perhaps even coax the delicious golden nectar forth with a gentle warming. What he conveniently forgot, or perhaps never quite grasped, was that a beer keg is essentially a pressurized metal container. And applying concentrated, intense heat to a pressurized metal container, especially one filled with carbonated liquid, tends to have predictable, albeit explosive, results. The beer, it turns out, wasn't the only thing that exploded that day. The ensuing blast was likely less of a celebratory pop and more of a violent, shrapnel-spewing catastrophe. He got his beer, all right, just not in the usual unexplosive manner, and probably not in a form he could enjoy. His final moments were likely a sudden, shocking realization that some problems are best solved with patience, or at least without the aid of a tool designed for cutting steel. Number 17. Next, we venture into the aquatic equivalent of a monster truck rally with the tale of the jet ski on highway. A man, faced with a flooded highway, a temporary inconvenience for most, a catastrophic blockage for commuters, saw not a watery obstacle, but an opportunity. An opportunity for aquatic thrill-seeking, apparently. He decided his jet ski, designed for open water and recreational zipping, was perfectly suited for high-speed transit down a submerged interstate. At full throttle, mind you. He was cutting through the floodwaters like some kind of daredevil, likely feeling the exhilarating rush of defying traffic laws and common sense simultaneously. What he failed to account for, however, was the immovable, unyielding presence of a bridge support. These aren't like waves you can jump over. They're solid, concrete anchors to the earth. His joyride ended with the kind of sudden, bone-jarring deceleration usually reserved for crash test dummies. The bridge support, being rather unconcerned with his aquatic ambitions, stopped him cold and permanently. It's a stark reminder that even when the road is clear, or rather unclear, some obstacles simply refuse to yield. Number 1. Young love. Moving in with your girlfriend is supposed to be a magical time. You get to split rent, share a Netflix account, and argue about whose turn it is to do the dishes. But for one 18-year-old, this romantic milestone was overshadowed by a tragic case of gravity always wins. To celebrate the big move, he decided a simple high five or champagne toast was too boring. No, he was going to do a backflip inside his apartment. Spoiler alert, apartments are not gymnastics arenas. Mid-flip, his trajectory turned from Cirque du Soleil to 911 emergency call in milliseconds. He landed head first, causing a brain bleed, and sadly died a few days later. The lesson? Love may lift you up, but physics will slam you right back down. Number 2. Yes, that Felix Baumgartner, the man who once jumped from the stratosphere, broke the sound barrier, and lived to tell the tale, met his match in a powered paraglider. This wasn't supposed to be a high-risk stunt. It was more like Sunday hobby in the sky. But when you're 60 feet up with a motor strapped to your back, a light breeze can turn into your arch nemesis. He lost control midair and crashed, not into open ground, but into a hotel pool. You'd think that landing in water might save you, but not when you arrive at roughly car accident speed. The irony? He survived the most extreme fall in human history, only to be taken out by what's basically a flying lawn chair. Number 3. Picture this. You're at a bodybuilding competition. The stage lights are bright, the crowd is roaring, and in walks the junior world champion. Muscles rippling, confidence at 110%. But instead of walking on stage like a normal human, he decides to wow the audience with a backward somersault. Here's the problem. Muscles don't make you immune to neck-breaking physics. He launched into the air and landed squarely on his head. The crack was not the applause he was expecting. He died instantly, proving that while strength is impressive, agility, and maybe a little humility, is also worth having. Number 4. Las Vegas, a place where people gamble their money, their dignity, and apparently their spinal cords. A prankster offered a homeless man $6 to do a backflip for the camera. $6. That's barely enough for a sandwich on the strip. Still, the man accepted, probably thinking, how hard can it be? Very hard, as it turns out. He launched into the flip, miscalculated the landing, and broke his neck. He died days later in the hospital. The prankster. He got a video that went viral for all the wrong reasons, and possibly the world's worst karma bill. If Darwin could hand out refunds, this would be at the top of the list. Number 5. Mad Mike Hughes, a man with 2 loves, conspiracy theories, and poorly engineered steam rockets. He believed the Earth was flat, and the only way to prove it was to launch himself high enough to see. The plan: build a homemade rocket, soar into the sky, and come back with proof that NASA is lying to us all. The problem? He skipped one tiny detail: a functioning parachute system. During a filmed stunt, his rocket took off and kept going until it came crashing down like a lead bowling ball. No proof of flat Earth was found, but we did get definitive evidence of something else. When you fight science, gravity always wins. Number 6. Steve Trotter was one of those people who looked at Niagara Falls and thought, that's not a terrifying wall of water that could crush me into a fine mist. That's a challenge. He became famous for going over the falls in a barrel, not once, but twice, and surviving both times. That alone is like telling death, nice try, buddy. But in 2022, Steve left the stage in a way that's oddly anticlimactic, under unspecified circumstances, which is the polite obituary version of, we have no idea what happened, but it probably wasn't great. For a man who strapped himself inside a glorified beer keg and rode 180,000 gallons of water per second, it almost feels unfair. Still, it's a reminder that death plays the long game. You can dodge the big dramatic finish, but eventually the credits roll. Number 7. We've all seen those work smarter, not harder office hacks, standing desks, yoga balls instead of chairs, maybe even a little under-desk cycling machine. But one man decided that wasn't enough. No, he needed a treadmill desk. And not just any treadmill desk, a treadmill desk with more power. Apparently, walking at 2 miles per hour while typing wasn't thrilling enough. So he modified the motor. Unfortunately, his engineering skills didn't quite match his ambition. One day, mid-email, the thing kicked into overdrive, launching him backward like a ragdoll in a video game glitch. He slammed into the wall behind him so hard that even the drywall gave up. The treadmill survived. He didn't. This is why voiding the warranty should be considered a warning, not a lifestyle. Number 8. Florida man strikes again. A local hobbyist decided to beat the system by building his own hovercraft out of a leaf blower, plastic sheeting, and a dream. Now, in theory, that sounds fun. In practice, the phrase built in Florida should already trigger a sense of impending doom. He tested it on a lake because, of course, why not add water to the mix? And at first, it worked until it didn't. Mid-ride, the whole contraption flipped over, trapping him underneath. Hovercrafts are cool in movies, but in real life, they have the unfortunate habit of being airtight death traps when upside down. The worst part? His neighbors said they warned him it might be dangerous. But to him, dangerous was the point. Mission accomplished, I guess. Number 9. This is one of those cases where the idea sounds brilliant after a couple of beers and ends up in the news after a couple of sirens. A man decided he was tired of waiting for his propane grill to heat up. His solution? Rig it with a timer so it would light itself. Imagine you get home from work and your burgers are already sizzling. Except, propane isn't exactly forgiving when it comes to automation. At precisely 6 p.m., the timer clicked, the spark fired, and the built-up gas did what built-up gas does best. Kaboom! Neighbors reported hearing the explosion from several streets away, and the house was instantly reclassified from 3-bedroom ranch to open-air concept. They say he died doing what he loved, preheating the grill. Personally, I think he died doing what he was best at, ignoring every safety warning ever printed on a propane tank. Number 10. Most people would settle for a swing set or maybe a trampoline in the backyard. But not this Texas man. He had the spirit of an amusement park mogul and the budget of a garage sale. He decided to build his own roller coaster out of wood, steel scraps, and a healthy dose of misplaced confidence. The first test ride? He insisted on going first, naturally. The track held for about half the loop before physics stepped in and said, "Not today!" The coaster collapsed in dramatic fashion, sending him crashing into his own lawn. His neighbors, who had been watching with lawn chairs and popcorn, reportedly agreed it was one hell of a show. Engineers will tell you that roller coasters rely on precise calculations and rigorous safety standards. He relied on duct tape and a prayer. Turns out prayers don't work well when you're upside down at 20 miles per hour. Number 11. Because nothing says lawn care like combining the deadliest household tool with airborne technology. One self-proclaimed innovator decided to strap not one, but 2 chainsaws to a large quadcopter so he could trim tree branches without a ladder. Now, the thing about physics is, it doesn't care about your intentions. The drone wobbled, the chainsaws swung like a medieval weapon, and in a scene straight out of a horror comedy, they came back toward the operator. Witnesses say his last words might as well have been, "I got this." Spoiler, he did not, in fact, got this. Number 12. Our next contestant thought that testing his new flamethrower inside his living room was perfectly reasonable. Because apparently, fire safety warnings are just government fear tactics. Armed with a tank of gasoline, a metal pipe, and way too much confidence, he pulled the trigger. The flame didn't just light up his target, it lit everything. Curtains, couch, the family cat's tail. The fire department later said it looked like a Michael Bay set piece, except the only explosion was his life plan. Pro tip: when the product you're building is literally designed to create fire, maybe don't test it near your collection of vintage newspapers. Number 13. There's this man wanted to make bathing more exciting and somehow decided a jet engine was the answer. Yes, an actual small turbine strapped to the back of his bathtub. He fired it up, and the initial roar apparently thrilled him for about half a second. The thrust launched a tidal wave across the room, shattering tile, pipes, and windows, while the blast ripped the tub right off the floor. When the bathroom dust settled, authorities found what can only be described as the aftermath of a cartoon explosion. Except in this case, Wile E. Coyote wasn't walking away. Number 14. Some folks can't be bothered with wimpy electric blenders. This Kentucky gentleman figured he'd make the world's most powerful margarita mixer using a lawnmower engine. The problem? A glass blender jar and a roaring gas engine don't exactly play nice. The moment he hit full throttle, the torque ripped the jar apart, sending shards, ice, and tequila flying in every direction. Witnesses report that his last audible statement was, "It's gonna be legendary." Well, it was. Legendary enough to make future party guests a little jumpy around power tools. Number 15. For his deep sea adventure, our hero used an upside-down trash can. With weights strapped to the rim, he lowered himself into a lake to explore the bottom without scuba gear. The flaw? He forgot water pressure is a thing. Within minutes, the structure buckled like a soda can, sucking in water and collapsing onto him. Rescuers said it looked like a giant silver mushroom sinking. And while we admire the spirit of exploration, maybe next time just rent some snorkeling equipment instead of trusting your life to something that once held lawn clippings. Number 16. We ascend to the dizzying yet brief heights of human aspiration with the duct tape wingsuit. This particular visionary believed that the ancient dream of human flight could be achieved not through rigorous aerodynamic engineering, but through the judicious application of adhesive tape. He meticulously crafted wings out of presumably cardboard or plastic sheeting, and then, with unwavering faith, secured them to his arms with a generous amount of duct tape. His launch pad? A roof? His goal? To soar like an eagle, or perhaps a slightly less elegant, more rigid albatross. The problem, as gravity so patiently explains time and time again, is that lift requires a bit more than sticky plastic and fervent belief. It requires precise airflow, specific wing shape, and often an engine. What followed was an immediate, unceremonious plummet. A rapid tutorial in the laws of physics delivered straight to the ground. The only thing that soared that day was the irony. Turns out duct tape is good for many things. Fixing broken glasses, temporarily patching a leaky pipe, but transforming a human into a bird is not among them. Number 17. Now for a shockingly bad idea from the farm, the electric fence test. A farmer, presumably a seasoned individual with a deep understanding of his land and its quirks, decided to personally verify the functionality of his electric fence. Not with a voltmeter or a simple touch from a gloved hand, or even by just observing if the cattle stayed put. No, this agricultural innovator chose a truly hands-on, or rather, stream-on approach. He urinated on it. It's a method that, while perhaps born of a moment of peculiar curiosity, demonstrates a profound lapse in judgment regarding basic conductivity. Water, and by extension urine, is an excellent conductor of electricity. And an electric fence, by its very nature, is designed to deliver a powerful, deterring jolt. The circuit, unfortunately for him, was completed with lethal efficiency. He got his definitive answer. All right. The shock was immediate and utterly final. It's a rather grim reminder that some scientific inquiries are best conducted from a safe distance, especially when dealing with live wires and bodily fluids. Number 18. And now we dive into the murky depths of another household hazard with the pool vacuum death. Someone, in a moment of either blissful ignorance or profound negligence, decided that it was perfectly safe to swim in a pool while the automatic pool vacuum was diligently going about its business. The innocent-looking robotic cleaner, designed to suck up debris from the bottom, doesn't discriminate. Its powerful suction, while efficient for cleaning, becomes a formidable, inescapable trap when applied to a human limb, or worse, a torso. The victim, unaware of the lurking danger, became ensnared underwater. What began as a refreshing dip turned into a rather permanent and tragically quiet deep-sea exploration. It's a chilling reminder that some convenience devices, while seemingly benign, can become instruments of demise if treated with insufficient caution. The pool, in the end, was clean, but at an unspeakably high price. Number 19. Next, we encounter the astonishingly direct approach to forestry known as chainsaw tree felling. This wasn't some rookie with a dull blade. This was a logger, a person presumably trained in the delicate art of persuading large, heavy objects to fall in a specific, non-human crushing direction. Yet, in a moment of what can only be described as profound directional disorientation, our lumberjack decided that the optimal felling strategy involved cutting the tree directly toward himself. Perhaps he envisioned a heroic last-second leap, a nimble sidestep worthy of an action movie hero. Or maybe he just had an incredibly optimistic view of his own reflexes. Trees, however, are rather unyielding to wishful thinking. And gravity, as always, is a stickler for the rules. He didn't dodge in time. The ensuing impact was less a timber and more a thump, followed by the definitive sound of a career and a life coming to an abrupt, flattening halt. It's a harsh lesson. When a several-ton object is hurtling towards you, a polite request to move is rarely sufficient. Number 20. Then there's the frosty folly of the frozen lake car stunt. In the grand tradition of individuals who view natural phenomena as personal playgrounds, a driver decided that a vast, frozen lake wasn't just a picturesque winter landscape, but a prime opportunity for some automotive acrobatics. Specifically, drifting. Because nothing says master of my domain like spinning a heavy vehicle on a precarious sheet of ice. What this enthusiast seemed to overlook, or perhaps just arrogantly dismissed, was the inherent fragility of frozen water under the stress of several thousand pounds of rapidly accelerating metal. Ice, it turns out, has its limits. The glorious slide quickly became a terrifying plunge as the ice cracked under the strain, sending the car and its intrepid driver on an unscheduled deep water exploration. The drift turned into a dunk, and the thrill of the moment rapidly transitioned into the icy chill of regret. The car sank. The driver, hopefully, gained a newfound respect for phase changes of matter. Number 21. Our next entry is a testament to the DIY spirit, albeit one fueled by a combustible mixture of ingenuity and insanity: the chainsaw scooter. Some brilliant mind decided that the mundane, pedestrian existence of a standard scooter was utterly beneath them. What it truly needed, they reasoned, was more power. And what better source of power than the high RPM two-stroke engine of a chainsaw? So, with wrenches, bolts, and an alarming disregard for personal safety, a chainsaw motor was jury-rigged onto a scooter frame. The sheer audacity. For a brief, terrifying period, it actually worked great. The scooter screamed down the street, probably leaving a trail of exhaust fumes, noise complaints, and bewildered onlookers. It was a Frankenstein's monster of backyard engineering, a testament to what happens when can overrides should. But like all good Frankenstein stories, it ended rather dramatically. It worked great until it exploded. Because a chainsaw engine designed for intermittent, high-stress cutting is not really built for sustained, high-speed propulsion, especially not when bolted to a vibrating, unstable contraption. The inventor, unfortunately, became intimately familiar with the explosive force of poorly contained gasoline and rapidly disassembling machinery. Number 22. Venturing into the wild, we encounter the classic man versus beast scenario, but with a particularly avoidable twist: the shark feeding dive. A diver, perhaps convinced of his own unique bond with the animal kingdom, or simply possessing a monumental lack of common sense, decided that the safest way to interact with apex predators was to hand feed them, without a cage, in their natural habitat. Because naturally, a creature designed to rip apart seals and fish will recognize your outstretched handful of chum as an act of pure benevolence rather than an easy meal. Nature, in its infinite wisdom, responded appropriately. The shark, operating on millions of years of predatory instinct, did what sharks do: it bit. The diver, unfortunately, learned that while some animals can be tamed, hungry sharks are generally not among them, especially when you offer them a direct culinary invitation. It was a swift, brutal, and entirely predictable lesson in the food chain. Number 23! Then there's the unfortunate incident involving theatrical special effects: the confetti cannon inspection. A stagehand, in a moment of perplexing curiosity, decided the best way to determine if a confetti cannon was loaded was to look directly into its business end. To peer down the barrel. Because a quick check of a release lever, or perhaps a conversation with the person who loaded it, was clearly too mundane. What he didn't realize, or perhaps chose to ignore, was that this particular confetti cannon had been loaded not with paper scraps, but with something far more volatile: fireworks. The moment he leaned in, whether by accidental trigger or sheer bad luck, the cannon fired. The ensuing blast was less a shower of festive paper and more a concussive explosion of pyrotechnics directly to the face. His curiosity was satisfied, but his face and his career were rather thoroughly rearranged. It was, shall we say, a very illuminating experience, though probably not in the way he'd hoped. Number 24. And now, we close this segment with a truly ironic entry: the gas mask and paint fumes incident. A diligent individual, aware of the dangers of inhaling toxic paint fumes while spray painting indoors, took the commendable step of wearing a gas mask. Safety first, he must have thought. But in a cruel twist of fate, or perhaps just an egregious oversight, he forgot to insert the actual filters into the mask. So, while he looked prepared, He was, in fact, merely breathing in concentrated, unfiltered toxic chemicals through a slightly more restricted pathway. It was the epitome of doing the right thing wrong. The mask provided no protection, only a false sense of security. He passed out, overwhelmed by the very fumes he thought he was protecting himself from. And sadly, he never woke up. It's a tragic reminder that sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the hazard itself, but the illusion of safety derived from improperly used equipment. It's a quiet, insidious way to go. A final, suffocating whisper of, if only I'd checked those filters.